Welcome inside our San Francisco studios. An immediate reaction. You love when I do this at the start of the show. An immediate reaction to the latest college football playoff rankings. Mike Yam and Yogi Roth with you. You can catch it also on Inside Pac-12 Football every Tuesday night once the rankings are revealed. Look, last week we had Kyle Whittingham on the show. This week, Francis Bernard, not to mention Mario Cristobal making an appearance. All right, what stood out to you initially as you looked at the top 10?
Well, I think the Alabama thing, of course, stood out because they lost and they're still ranked higher than Oregon and Utah as one-loss teams, and even Georgia, to be quite honest with you. So I think that was the biggest thing. My biggest takeaway from this ranking is number 8, Minnesota. And the reason behind that, right, if we just set the stage, Mike, the committee's job, in their eyes and in the eyes of anybody who follows the committee, is to select the 4 best teams.
Sure.
4 best. But how they define 4 best is up to the individual of the 13-member committee. So what they decided with Minnesota being up is they do not value, at least collectively, the body of work. Because their body of work, when you look at least the month of September, South Dakota State, Fresno State, Georgia Southern, wins they barely got, clearly weren't impressive.
Sure.
So I say that, and that's a great thing for everybody in the Pac-12, both the teams, right? You look at the Auburn game was week 1. You look at the Utah-USC game was in September.
Sure.
All right, cool. Like, they were better games than what Minnesota did. So, and I think you can look around the consistency of the committee. That's one thing that's been consistent, is they're like, all right, what's hot right now? So for 2 teams that will have another game when Alabama presumably will not, I think they're sitting just fine. Like, it can't be an ugly game with 20 combined penalties or anything like that, but right now, I don't even need to stand on the soapbox. I can sit on it. I can feel comfortable about it. And I think we all should, based on what the committee said, with 2 teams on a bye. They could have dropped them behind Minnesota. They could have dropped them behind Penn State. They could have dropped them behind even Oklahoma because they didn't play and made a case about that, but they didn't. So I feel good.
Okay, so from an Alabama standpoint, I think what's intriguing about their situation is what's the ceiling in terms of movement for them? Now, they are coming off a loss at home against an LSU squad, gave up 46 points. Juggernaut defense that we always talk about in terms of Alabama just got completely manhandled. Full body worth of work, a strength of schedule that's sitting well over 100 compared to a one-loss Oregon squad that's sitting at, 55th in terms of strength of schedule. Like, you look at the metrics, and it's one thing to look at just metrics, another thing to watch what we're seeing on the football field. The reality is Oregon looks like a vastly different team that continues to get healthier as the season progresses. Guys are making more of an impact. Even from an eye test standpoint, you mentioned this to me earlier. You were recording your passion bucket. What did you say? Hey, they're always going to have the horses. They're always going to look the part. We've seen some teams around the country that have 4- and 5-star recruits. That doesn't always mean you're going to have the best football team on the football field.
And now I'm going to stand on the soapbox,
okay,
right, to the point of Alabama. Let's just be truth tellers of what they have remaining. They go to Mississippi State. They have Western Carolina. If you're not familiar with them, join the club. Nobody really is when it comes to the college football playoff. And they finish, of course, in the rivalry against Auburn on the road.
Sure.
Decent games, right? When you put those 3 up against the remaining for Utah or for Oregon, you can make an argument. And I get the Auburn argument, and that's fair. But what I look at is that the committee, again, is tasked to find the 4 best this year. We both did the mock committee selection. I went down there and asked specifically, do you consider previous seasons? Do you consider the history, the championships won last year, whether that's Clemson or Alabama or what they've done historically under Nick Saban? And they said unequivocally, Mike, no, we do not consider that. So what would that tell you? That would tell you that Alabama, to your point, not only gave up almost a 50 spot at home, they came off of a bye week at home. They came off of a bye week at home with Nick Saban and got that amount of points put on them. What does that tell me? That tells me they're not as good as they've been in the past. That is the truth. That is the facts. Your eye test is always going to tell you that Alabama has a roster of 4 or 5 stars because that's their truth. That's what they have. But if you watch, your eye test will also tell you that the defense is suspect. The offense can put up points. The SEC defensively is not nearly what it was in years past. I think Utah would be the top defense right now in the SEC when you look at the players that they're going to kick off to the National Football League. And you could argue that Oregon would have the best offensive front in the SEC, and it'd be in the conversation for the top signal callers. So, to sit back on my soapbox, my point is that the reality of 4 best right now for Alabama can't be in the conversation anymore. Unless teams start to lose ahead of them, they had their opportunity. They missed it. We can't start giving people passes based on their name and who they are and what they've done in the past. So that, to me, is going to be a big sticking point. They played well. They're impressive. But you lose at home off a bye week, ain't good enough for me, man.
You've told me this before, that when you throw the term eye test out there, people will refer to the stars and the type of player that's on the football field. You just dropped something out there. You said Utah would be maybe the top defense in the SEC if they were playing that conference. Explain to me, in terms of a balance, not only what they're doing defensively, but also offensively. What does your eye tell you about their football team?
Well, they look the most like an SEC team when you look at the history of the SEC. Why? A very gifted front seven. I didn't want to necessarily use the phrase I was going to use, Mike. Their front seven is fierce, man. They've got NFL dudes, Lecky Fotu, Bradley Anae, John Penasini. Look at the linebackers, Francis Bernard. He's an NFL player. I've talked to multiple GMs that love this front seven. Devin Lloyd looks like one of those SEC ball-hawking linebackers. Then we go to the secondary. Julian Blackmon.
Sure.
Safety, looks like an SEC safety. Jalen Johnson looks like an SEC corner. Javelin Guidry is the second fastest guy in the country playing college football who also runs track. That's proven when you just look at what he's done in his offseason at NCAA track championship. So at every layer, they're real. That's the defensive side. Let's flip it over to the offense, to your question. Their offensive line, size-wise, would match up with every offensive line in the SEC or Big Ten. I mean, they've got large human beings. They have multiple tight ends that they use that aren't just pass catchers. They have a running back in Zach Moss, who, oh, by the way, was injured in the USC game. If we want to talk injuries, by the way, who is an elite first back taken from this conference in the National Football League, all-time leading rusher in that institution. And a quarterback, Tyler Huntley, he's completing 77% of his passes on third downs, meaning they're not playing catch, they're playing quarterback. He's under center, he's dropping back. They're doing all the things that would say SEC type of team. So I call it a film test.
Sure.
Like, what are you watching, and how are you watching, and how are you evaluating? So to me, they're in perfect position, and they should be in that type of conversation. We're comparing one-loss teams.
All right, complete reaction every single Tuesday, the college football playoff rankings. Yogi and I have you covered. Pac-12 Network, Inside Pac-12 Football, the latest edition, Mario Cristobal. If you missed the live airing, it's all good. It's re-airing. Just set the DVR so you got it covered every single Tuesday night. Well said. Get off the soapbox. You're good. Take a deep breath.
I feel good about that.